The galaxy had been plunged into chaos. The Human Federation and the Zarnak Empire had been at war for years. Battles raged across star systems, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. The soldiers of the Federation were the last line of defense against an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. Among them was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, a soldier known for his incredible skills and his unshakable resolve. In the heat of battle, he wore his combat armor like a second skin, never once removing it. His armor was a symbol of his strength, his protection against the dangers of the alien empire. But today was different. The Zarnak Queen herself had demanded a confrontation. She had ordered Marcus, the human soldier, to remove his armor. Her message had been delivered to him directly, no one else. It was an order he couldn't ignore, not if he wanted to maintain his position and honor in this war. Marcus stood at the edge of the battlefield, the sounds of gunfire and explosions still echoing in the distance. The enemy forces were regrouping, but his attention was focused on the alien queen, who stood on a raised platform across from him, surrounded by her elite guards. Her towering form, draped in dark, intricate armor, seemed almost otherworldly. The soldiers around her parted as she made eye contact with Marcus. Her gaze was cold, calculating. "Remove your armor." The queen's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Her words carried a weight that none dared to question. Marcus hesitated, his heart racing. For a soldier like him, the armor was not just protection. It was a lifeline. It had kept him alive through countless battles, keeping him safe from enemy fire, from alien weapons that could melt through steel. Taking it off meant revealing himself, showing the enemy his true vulnerability. But there was something in the queen's eyes that made him pause. There was no anger, no malice in her voice, just a strange curiosity, almost as if she were waiting for him to comply. With a deep breath, Marcus slowly began to unfasten the clasps on his armor. Every movement felt heavier than the last. As each piece of the battle-worn suit fell away, the weight of the moment grew. The soldiers on both sides watched in silence, unsure of what would happen next. Finally, Marcus stood before the queen, now stripped of his protective armor. His body was bruised and scarred from countless skirmishes, but his gaze was steady. He looked directly at the queen, meeting her cold stare with a calm resolve. But the queen didn't react as he expected. Her expression froze, her eyes widening slightly as they locked onto his face. For a brief moment, there was an almost imperceptible shift in her demeanor. Her posture softened, her lips parted as if she had seen something unexpected. Marcus felt the weight of her stare, but he couldn't understand what had caused her to react this way. Was it his humanity? Was it his scars? Or was it something more, something deeper than mere physical appearance? He couldn't know. All he knew was that this moment had changed everything. The queen stood motionless for several long seconds, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. Her expression remained unreadable, but Marcus felt an unsettling chill in the air, as if the very universe had paused to witness whatever had just transpired. And then the queen spoke again, but this time her voice was softer, almost uncertain. You are not like the others." The words hung in the air, thick with meaning, as the battlefield faded into the background. The moment the queen spoke, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Her words were not what he had expected. She had not screamed in anger, nor had she demanded an immediate attack. Instead, she seemed confused. Her eyes were fixed on him, studying him as though he were not just a soldier, but something far more significant. You are not like the others," she repeated, her voice softer now, almost curious. Marcus stood still, unsure of how to respond. His mind raced, but his body remained frozen in place. This wasn't just another alien leader who saw humans as weak or insignificant. The queen seemed to be seeing something deeper. But what? He glanced around. The alien soldiers who had stood in formation around the queen were still watching intently, but there was no sign of aggression. It was as if the entire scene had shifted. What had once been a battle was now a strange, silent exchange between two beings from completely different worlds. "Why do you look at me like that?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the growing confusion. The queen, her posture regal yet tense, took a step forward. The movement was slow, deliberate. She didn't speak at first, but her eyes never left his face. It felt as if she was trying to piece together something she didn't understand, something that was beyond her knowledge. "Who are you?" she finally asked, her tone now full of deep curiosity. "I have seen many humans in battle, but none like you." Marcus wasn't sure how to answer. He was just a soldier, trained to fight, to follow orders, to survive. He had no idea why the queen was so fixated on him. What made him different from the other soldiers who had fought beside him? "I am Lieutenant Marcus Hale of the Human Federation," he replied, the words coming out as a simple statement of fact. "I am no one special, just another soldier." The queen shook her head slightly, her long alien hair shimmering in the dim light. She took another step toward him, this time her face almost closer than he expected. Her gaze was intense, searching, but it held none of the anger or malice he had prepared for. There was only something else, a quiet recognition. Something unspoken passed between them, but Marcus couldn't understand what it was. "You are more than just a soldier," she said, almost to herself. "There is something ancient in your eyes." Marcus felt a growing unease. He had been trained for many things: combat, tactics, survival. But he had never been trained for this. A queen of an alien empire, speaking of something ancient, something deep, that he couldn't grasp. "Are you trying to say that I'm important?" he asked, a bit incredulously. "I'm just one man in a war between two empires." The queen's eyes softened for a moment, and for the first time since this strange encounter began, she seemed almost vulnerable. But it was fleeting. Her composure quickly returned, and she took another step back, her gaze still locked on him. "You don't know," she muttered, more to herself than to him. "No human should know what you are." Marcus frowned, confused. The queen was speaking in riddles, and every word only deepened the mystery. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear: this was no ordinary battle, and he was no ordinary soldier. "You will learn soon enough," the queen said with a cold finality, her voice once again commanding. "The truth of your past and how it ties to the fate of us all." With those words, the queen turned and motioned for her guards to step forward. They didn't attack, no. Instead, they parted as she moved toward a nearby transport ship. Marcus, still unsure of what had just happened, stood in place. He had no choice but to follow. The encounter was not over. It was only beginning. Marcus followed the alien queen and her guards through the war-torn city. The chaos of the battlefield seemed to fall away as they walked, the sounds of explosions and gunfire growing distant. The queen's transport ship stood in the distance, a massive, sleek vessel surrounded by her soldiers. The ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, smooth, metallic, and shaped like a giant bird of prey, glinting under the dim light of the setting sun. As they approached the ship, the queen turned to him. Her gaze, though still sharp, was no longer filled with suspicion or confusion. It had softened, replaced by a strange sense of curiosity. It was as if she was waiting for something, waiting for Marcus to say something that would make sense of this entire situation. "You still haven't answered me," the queen said, her voice less commanding now, but still with an undeniable authority. "Who are you truly? Why do I feel this connection?" Marcus opened his mouth to speak but stopped himself. He had no idea what she was talking about. He was just a soldier, nothing more, nothing less. But there was something about the way she looked at him, the way her eyes searched his face, that made him feel like he was missing something important, something far beyond his understanding. "I'm no one special," he said again, trying to make sense of it himself. "I'm just a soldier." The queen's lips parted slightly, and for the first time, Marcus saw a flicker of something almost human in her expression. It was fleeting, But it was there. A moment of vulnerability, of doubt. It was enough to make him pause. "No, you are more," she murmured. "I have seen many humans. Your kind are strong, resilient. But your face, it is different." Marcus was starting to feel uneasy. "What do you mean?" The queen hesitated for a moment before speaking again, her voice softer this time. "There is something in your eyes, a history I have seen before." He frowned, feeling the weight of her words but unable to grasp their meaning. He had been in countless battles, faced enemies of all kinds, but this was different. This conversation felt like it was part of something much larger than just a fight between two empires. "I'm not sure I understand," Marcus said slowly. "What history? What do you see?" The queen didn't answer immediately. Instead, she gazed up at the sky, her expression distant, as if searching for something that only she could see. The silence stretched between them, and Marcus could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. He wasn't sure what to make of this alien queen, this powerful leader who had just questioned him in such a strange way. Was this a trick? Was she trying to break him psychologically? Then she turned back to him, her face hardening once more. "The legends," she said, her voice sharp now. "The ancient stories of my people speak of a human who would rise against us, a human who would change everything." Marcus' mind raced as he tried to process her words. He had heard of the legends, the ancient tales passed down through his people. But they were just that, legends. He had never believed them to be true. Could she really be speaking of him? The idea felt absurd, but the queen's eyes told a different story. She believed it. "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus said, his voice low. "I'm just here to fight. That's all I've ever done." The queen seemed to consider this for a moment, her gaze never leaving him. Then, with a final nod, she turned and entered the transport ship. The guards followed her, leaving Marcus standing outside, his thoughts in turmoil. He had no idea what was going on or why the queen had reacted the way she had, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a war anymore. Something deeper was at play, something far more important than any battle or fight he had ever been a part of. The doors of the ship closed behind the queen, and Marcus was left standing alone, more uncertain than ever about the future. The transport ship hummed softly as Marcus stood in the doorway, watching the queen and her guards inside. The vessel's interior was sleek, cold, and made of smooth metallic surfaces. The lights inside glowed faintly, casting an eerie glow on everything they touched. The atmosphere was tense, filled with unspoken questions. Marcus could still feel the weight of the queen's gaze on him from moments earlier. His mind was in turmoil. What did she mean by the legends? What did she see in him that no one else had? He had always been just another soldier, someone who followed orders and fought battles. But the way the queen looked at him, it was as if she saw something deeper, something important, hidden just beneath the surface. Marcus hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. The door closed behind him with a quiet hiss, sealing him into the alien ship with the queen and her guards. The queen, now seated at a long dark table, looked at him with her piercing eyes, waiting for him to approach. Her posture was calm, yet there was a tension in her that was hard to ignore. "Sit," she commanded, her voice steady but not unkind. Marcus did as he was told, sitting across from her, his back straight and his eyes never leaving her face. He knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The queen seemed to sense his nervousness, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "You still don't understand, do you?" the queen asked, her voice quiet now, almost gentle. "You are more than just a soldier. You are connected to a history that is buried in the deepest corners of my people's memories. And now, here you are, a human, standing before me." Marcus swallowed, unsure of what to say. He had no idea what she was talking about. All he knew was that he had been thrown into this war against his will and had no choice but to keep fighting. But this was something else. The queen seemed to believe that he held some kind of key, something crucial to the fate of her species, or perhaps even the fate of the entire galaxy. "What are you saying?" Marcus asked, his voice low but firm. "I'm just a soldier who's been sent here to fight. I don't know about any legends. I don't know about your people's past." The queen studied him for a long moment, and then, with a sigh, she leaned back in her chair. "Perhaps that is for the best," she said, almost to herself. "I had hoped you would remember, but I see now that I was wrong. The past has been forgotten by your people, and by mine." Marcus didn't understand. The alien queen seemed to carry a heavy burden, one that she hadn't fully shared with him. It was clear now that the conflict between their species was not the only thing at play. There was something far older and deeper, something that connected them in a way Marcus couldn't comprehend. The queen's eyes softened for just a moment, and for the first time since their strange encounter began, she showed a hint of vulnerability. "I was wrong to think I could speak of this to you so soon," she said. "But I am tired of fighting a war that has no meaning. My people have long forgotten the true purpose of our conflict." The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. He had always believed in the cause he fought for, but hearing the queen speak so openly about the futility of her own war shook him. The weight of this new reality began to settle over him. He was no longer just a soldier in a battle for survival. He was caught in something far larger than himself. "You're not just a soldier," the queen continued, her voice heavy with emotion. "You're a part of something far bigger. And perhaps together, we can end this war, for both of us." The idea was unthinkable. A human soldier and an alien queen working together to end a centuries-old war. It seemed impossible, but the look in her eyes, the sincerity in her words, made Marcus wonder if it was truly the only path left. For the first time since he'd arrived on this strange planet, Marcus allowed himself to hope, just a little. The queen's words echoed in Marcus's mind as he sat in silence across from her. Her offer, to work together, to end the war, seemed almost too unreal to believe. She spoke with such conviction, her voice full of sincerity, but Marcus wasn't sure if he could trust her. After all, she was the leader of the alien empire that had been waging war against humanity for years. Could he really believe that she wanted peace, or was this just another tactic, another manipulation? His mind raced as the queen sat back in her seat, her eyes fixed on him. She had offered him an explanation earlier, but it had only left him with more questions. Her words about history, about ancient connections between their species, left him confused and unsure of what to think. "I don't know if I can trust you," Marcus finally said, his voice steady but filled with doubt. "You're the queen of the empire that's been attacking Earth. How can I just forget all of that?" The queen's eyes narrowed, but her expression remained calm. "I understand your hesitation," she said, her voice softer now. "But this war is not what it seems. The truth has been hidden for so long, even from my own people. We were told that humanity was nothing more than an enemy to be conquered, but I've seen something different. I've seen something in you, something that I've been searching for." Marcus didn't understand what she meant, but the intensity in her eyes made him listen. He had never seen anyone like the queen. Strong, commanding, yet vulnerable in a way that made him question everything he knew about the enemy. "You said something earlier," Marcus began, his mind returning to her cryptic words. "You said I wasn't like the others, that I was connected to something ancient. What do you mean by that?" The queen looked away for a moment, as if searching for the right words. She sighed, then leaned forward, her eyes locked on his once again. "It's not just your face, Marcus. It's something deeper, something buried in the past of both our species. There are legends, old, ancient stories of a human who would rise and change the fate of the galaxy. I didn't believe them at first. I thought they were just myths. But now, I'm starting to see that they were true." Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Could she be talking about him? He was just a soldier, nothing more. How could he possibly be part of some ancient prophecy? He had no connection to legends or grand destinies. He was just doing his job, fighting for survival. "You're talking about something I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice low. "How could I possibly be connected to those stories? I don't even know what you're talking about." The Queen's eyes softened, and for the first time, she looked truly vulnerable. "The truth is hidden from both of us, Marcus. My people have kept it buried for centuries. But you carry a piece of that truth. The legends say that a human would rise, someone who would challenge the Empire and bring about a new era. And I believe that person is you." Marcus sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. A human who would rise and challenge the Empire. He couldn't be that person. He was just one soldier. Nothing special. Yet the Queen's conviction made him question everything he had ever believed about himself and his role in this war. "I'm not sure I can be what you think I am," he said quietly. "But if there's any truth in what you're saying, we need to find it. We need to end this war, for both our peoples." The Queen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. The truth is the key to everything. And together, we can uncover it. But be warned, Marcus. There are those in my empire who will not accept this truth. They will fight us every step of the way. We are going to need all the strength we can muster." Marcus looked at the Queen, his eyes narrowing. This was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the future of both their species. A fight for the truth. "I'm with you," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's find that truth. Together." The tension between Marcus and the alien Queen had shifted. What had once been a battle of enemies was now a partnership, an alliance forged by the search for truth. As Marcus sat across from the Queen, he couldn't help but feel the weight of their mission pressing down on him. This was no longer just about survival. It was about uncovering something ancient, something that could change the fate of both their species. The Queen's expression had softened since their earlier conversation, but her resolve was unwavering. She had shared fragments of the ancient legend, of a human who would rise and challenge the Empire, but Marcus still had more questions than answers. What was the connection between the two of them? What truth was buried in the past, and how would it lead them to peace? "We must travel to the old ruins," the Queen said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, yet there was a fire beneath it that Marcus could feel. "That is where the answers lie." Marcus didn't hesitate. The ruins she spoke of were located deep within enemy territory, a place untouched by human hands for centuries. To many, it was a forbidden land, a place filled with dangers and traps meant to protect the secrets buried beneath it. But to the Queen, it was a place of power, a place where the lost history of their people could be uncovered. "I'll go with you," Marcus said firmly. "We'll find what's hidden there." The Queen's eyes met his, and for a moment, she studied him, as if weighing his words. "You are brave, Marcus Hale, but be prepared. The path we take will not be easy. My own people will do everything they can to stop us." "I'm ready for whatever comes," Marcus replied. The weight of his words settled heavily on him. He had no choice but to follow through. The fate of both their species rested on what they would find in the ruins. The Queen stood up, her form tall and commanding. "Then we leave at once." They made their way to the transport ship, and soon they were traveling at high speed, leaving the battlefields behind them. The stars outside the ship's windows blurred as they cut through the space between them and the ancient ruins. Marcus couldn't help but glance at the Queen from time to time. There was something about her presence, something ancient and powerful, that he couldn't ignore. She was more than just a queen. She was a leader who had carried the weight of her empire for too long. And now, she was leading them both into the heart of the unknown. As the ship descended toward the ruins, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just walking into a hidden past. They were walking into a storm that could either destroy them or change the galaxy forever. The transport ship touched down on a barren, rocky surface. The ruins loomed ahead, ancient structures half buried in the earth, their stone walls cracked and weathered by time. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps as they made their way through the ruins. "This is it," the queen whispered. "This is where it all began." Marcus looked around, taking in the desolate landscape. The ruins stretched out before them like a forgotten monument to a past civilization. It was hard to imagine that this place had once been filled with life, with knowledge that could now hold the key to their future. "Let's find the truth," Marcus said, his voice low but full of determination. The queen nodded. Together, they began to move deeper into the ruins, ready to uncover the secrets hidden within the ancient stone walls. The deeper Marcus and the queen ventured into the ruins, the more the weight of the place seemed to settle around them. The air grew colder, and the silence felt heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding secrets that had been buried for too long. Ancient symbols covered the stone floors and walls, their meaning lost to time but still visible enough to stir something deep within both of them. The queen moved ahead, her steps confident and sure. Marcus followed closely, his mind racing with questions he had yet to ask. "Do you really believe what you said earlier?" Marcus asked, breaking the silence. "That we can end this war? That it's possible?" The queen paused, her back still turned to him. She didn't immediately answer, but the tension in her shoulders was enough to show that his question hadn't been taken lightly. "Do you think I would bring you here just to die?" she asked quietly, turning to face him. Her eyes were sharp, almost accusing. "You don't understand the weight of this, Marcus. I have seen countless battles, countless deaths. My people have suffered just as much as yours. The war is not just about power or conquest. It is about survival. And we, humans, and Zarnaks alike, are caught in a cycle that has gone on for too long." Marcus felt the sting of her words. She wasn't wrong. He had grown up with the war. It had always been a part of his life. He had never questioned it. But now, standing in these ancient ruins with an alien queen, someone who had been fighting the same battle from the other side, he was starting to see things differently. "I didn't choose this war," Marcus said, his voice low but steady. "I was born into it, just like you were." The queen's expression softened, but only for a moment. "I didn't choose it either," she said. "None of us did. But now that we are here, we must choose a new path. A path that leads to peace, not more destruction." Marcus considered her words. The idea of peace seemed almost impossible. How could there be peace when so much blood had been shed, when entire worlds had been destroyed? But the queen's eyes, so filled with conviction, made him wonder. Could it be possible? "We've fought for so long," Marcus said, looking around the ruins. "Can it really be that easy to just stop? How do we convince our people that this is the right way?" The queen moved closer, her gaze never leaving his. "It won't be easy," she said. "Nothing worth fighting for ever is. But we must start somewhere. We must show our people that it is possible to change, even if they resist, even if they fight us every step of the way." Marcus felt the weight of her words. She was asking him to believe in something more than just survival. She was asking him to believe in change, to believe in a future where humans and Zarnaks could live side by side, not as enemies, but as equals. The silence between them stretched, thick with the gravity of their conversation. Marcus wanted to believe her, but the fear of failure, the fear that this was all just a fantasy, gnawed at him. Could they really pull this off? But before he could voice his doubts, a loud crash echoed through the ruins. The queen's guards, who had been searching nearby, came running toward them. "We are not alone," one of them shouted, panic in his voice. "We've been found." The queen's eyes hardened in an instant. The conversation was over. The time for ideals had passed. Now they had to fight, not just for their survival, but for the future they had hoped to create. Marcus grabbed his weapon, his instincts taking over. "Then let's make sure we don't lose this chance," he said. The queen nodded, her expression fierce. "No matter the cost." As the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, Marcus and the queen stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The battle for peace was far from over, But for the first time, Marcus felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. The sounds of footsteps grew louder, echoing off the stone walls of the ancient ruins. Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes scanning the dimly lit passages for any sign of movement. The Queen's guards had scattered to cover the perimeter, but the tension was thick in the air. Something wasn't right. The Queen stood beside Marcus, her posture regal but alert, every muscle in her body coiled, ready for action. "We're not alone," Marcus muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who are they?" The Queen's eyes narrowed as she studied the shadows. "It's my own people, those who believe the truth should remain hidden. They are here to stop us from uncovering what lies beneath these ruins." Marcus's heart sank. This wasn't just an enemy they were fighting. It was a war within her own empire. A faction of the Zarnak Empire, opposed to peace, was hunting them down to keep the ancient truth buried. "We can't let them stop us," Marcus said firmly. "We're close. I can feel it." The Queen nodded, her expression hardening. "You're right. The truth must come to light, no matter the cost." They didn't have much time. The sound of boots on the ground was getting closer. The Queen motioned to Marcus, and they both moved quickly into the center of the ruins. The walls here were ancient and worn, but there was something about them that felt different. The air was heavier here, as if it carried a weight that hadn't been disturbed in centuries. They had to find the chamber the Queen spoke of, the one where the truth about their history was buried. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling as the entrance to the chamber opened. It was a massive stone door, covered in intricate markings that Marcus couldn't decipher. The Queen stepped forward, her hand outstretched. She spoke in a language Marcus didn't understand, her voice resonating in the still air. The markings on the door seemed to glow faintly as she finished speaking. Slowly, the door groaned and began to open, revealing a dark passageway leading deeper into the heart of the ruins. "This is it," the Queen whispered. "The truth is beyond that door, but we must hurry. They are almost here." Without hesitation, Marcus followed her inside. The passage was narrow and winding, and the walls seemed to close in around them as they moved deeper into the ruins. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the soft echo of their footsteps. As they reached the end of the passage, they found themselves standing in a massive chamber. At the center of the room was a large pedestal, covered in alien symbols. On top of the pedestal rested a glowing orb, its surface pulsing with an inner light. The Queen approached the pedestal, her eyes wide with awe. "This is it, the key to everything." Marcus stepped closer, his heart racing. What was this orb? What power did it hold? The Queen reached out to touch it, but before her fingers could make contact, the chamber doors slammed shut behind them. A group of Zarnak soldiers appeared, their weapons drawn. They had found them. "You've made a grave mistake, Your Majesty," one of the soldiers said, his voice cold and stern. "This place was never meant to be disturbed. The truth must remain hidden." Marcus stepped in front of the Queen, his weapon raised. "We're not going to let you stop us," he said, his voice steady. "The truth belongs to everyone. No one should be kept in the dark." The Queen's eyes met his, filled with determination. "We've come this far. We will not let them take this from us." The soldiers advanced, but Marcus was ready. This battle was not just for survival anymore. It was for the future of both their peoples. With a single motion, he charged, and the Queen followed suit, ready to protect the truth at any cost. The fight was fierce, but Marcus fought with everything he had. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for the hope of a new beginning, a future where humanity and the Zarnaks could live in peace. And no one, no matter how strong or how powerful, would take that from him. As the last of the Zarnak soldiers fell, the Queen approached the pedestal once again. She placed her hand on the orb, and it responded, glowing brighter with a flash of light. The truth was finally within their grasp. The Queen turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with a new kind of certainty. "We've done it," she said quietly. "The past is no longer hidden. Now we can move forward." But as the light from the orb began to shine brighter, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey. The chamber was filled with an intense light as the queen placed her hand on the glowing orb. The pulse of energy from the orb surged through the room, illuminating the ancient walls with vibrant colors. Marcus watched in awe, his heart pounding. It was as if the very air around them had shifted, filled with the weight of ancient knowledge that had long been buried. The queen's eyes were fixed on the orb, her expression both calm and full of purpose. "This is it," she whispered. "The key to ending this war. The key to everything." Marcus stood beside her, still trying to process the significance of what was happening. The orb wasn't just an artifact. It was a living piece of their shared history, a truth that neither species had understood until now. As the light from the orb bathed them, he could feel the connection between them grow stronger. The past, the present, and the future seemed to collide in this single moment. But as the queen touched the orb, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them trembled again, more violently this time. The light from the orb flickered and then dimmed, casting long shadows across the chamber. The queen's eyes widened in alarm. "No," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "This should not be happening." Marcus took a step back, his instincts kicking in. "What's going on?" The queen pulled her hand away from the orb, and the light flickered out completely. The power of the orb, it's more than just history. It's a source of immense energy, and it's being blocked. Someone doesn't want us to find this truth. Before Marcus could respond, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The doors that had sealed them in moments before slammed open, and a group of Zarnak soldiers stormed in, led by a familiar figure, the Queen's most trusted general. "You've gone too far, Your Majesty," the general said, his voice harsh and filled with contempt. "You are foolish to believe that this truth should be exposed. The Zarnak Empire must remain strong, unyielding." The Queen stood tall, her eyes burning with defiance. "The strength of the Empire has been built on lies for too long. I will not stand by and let my people continue down this path of destruction." The general's eyes flickered with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You would betray your own people for this lie." The Queen shook her head. "It's not a lie. The truth has been hidden from us all, and now we have the chance to change everything." Marcus stepped forward, his weapon ready. "If you're going to stop us, you'll have to go through me first." The general sneered. "I've fought many humans, soldier. You're no different." Without warning, the general lunged at Marcus, but the human soldier was faster. With a swift movement, he blocked the general's strike and countered, knocking the weapon from his hands. The fight was brief but intense, with Marcus using every ounce of his training to defend the Queen and the truth they had uncovered. As the general fell, defeated but still alive, the Queen stepped forward, her voice commanding. "This is over. The truth will be known, no matter the cost." The remaining soldiers hesitated, unsure of what to do. They had been loyal to the general, but now they were faced with a decision: follow the path of war or accept the Queen's vision of peace. Marcus looked at the Queen, seeing a strength in her that he hadn't fully understood until now. She wasn't just fighting for her throne. She was fighting for something far greater, for the future of both their species. The Queen turned to him, her expression softening. "We've done it, Marcus. We've exposed the truth. Now we can rebuild. Together." Marcus nodded, feeling a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. Yes, together. The chamber, once filled with conflict and uncertainty, was now a place of new beginnings. The power of the orb had been unlocked, and with it, the potential for peace. The Queen and Marcus stood side by side, ready to face the challenges ahead, not as enemies, but as allies, united in their vision for a better future. The ruins were quiet now, the echoes of battle fading into the distance. Marcus stood beside the Queen, watching as the last of the Zarnak soldiers surrendered, their weapons lowered, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. It had all happened so quickly. Just hours ago, they had been fighting for survival. Now, the entire fate of their species rested in the hands of the Queen and the human soldier who had dared to challenge everything. The Queen, still standing tall, looked out over the ancient ruins with a sense of finality. Her empire, once filled with pride and power, was now facing the truth they had long ignored. The truth about their past, their mistakes, and the way forward. Marcus stepped closer to her. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with the weight of everything that had happened. The Queen turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Now, we rebuild. We start over. The old ways are gone. The power of the Empire was built on lies and fear. But the truth," she paused, her gaze softening. "The truth is stronger than any empire." Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of her words. They had uncovered something far more important than ancient artifacts or military secrets. They had uncovered the key to peace, a peace that was built on truth, trust, and the willingness to change. It wouldn't be easy. There would be resistance from both her people and his. But for the first time, Marcus believed it was possible. "We'll have to fight for it," Marcus said, his voice firm. "There are many who won't accept this, who won't believe in the change we're trying to create." The Queen's eyes darkened for a moment, but then she straightened, her resolve hardening. "Yes, we will have to fight, but we are not alone. You and I have shown that there is strength in unity. There are others who will stand with us. We can change the future." Marcus looked around the chamber, the place where everything had begun and where it would end. The orb, now dim but still glowing faintly, lay on the pedestal in the center. It was no longer just a source of power. It was a symbol of the new path they would walk, the path toward peace. "I'm with you," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We'll make sure the truth spreads. We'll make sure it's heard." The Queen nodded, her eyes meeting his with a quiet but powerful understanding. "Together, we will lead both our people into a new era." They walked together to the entrance of the chamber, the once strong walls now serving as a reminder of what they had overcome. As they stepped outside, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. The stars that had watched them throughout the night began to fade as the sun's warmth began to spread across the ruins, casting long shadows and bringing life to the silent landscape. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt hope rise within him. The war was not over yet. The challenges ahead would be great, but for the first time, there was a chance, a real chance, for a future where humans and Zarnaks could coexist. A future where the old cycles of violence and hatred could be broken. The Queen stood next to him, her expression calm but filled with the fire of determination. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We have a long road ahead of us, but I believe we can do it, together." And as they looked out at the dawn of a new day, Marcus couldn't help but believe it too. The road ahead would be uncertain, but with the truth in their hands, they were ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would build a future that neither species had thought possible.